Welcome back to Watchbox Studios. This is Watches Tonight, and I'm your host, Tim Mosso. Happy New Year, welcome back. It's good to be back. You are my online family, and we've got our studio audience of Watchbox friends standing by. This evening, I forecast 2022 watches from major luxury brands. We chat live, and I share your viewer wrist shots in the first wrist shots of 2022. Remember, guys, check out the redesigned homepage of thewatchbox.com. A lot of very cool watches traded in prior to the holiday are now making their way to our online storefront. De Bethune, Moritz Grossmann, Patek Philippe, or more mainstream brands like Rolex, Omega, and Breitling. They are all there, a watch for every wrist, every taste, and every price point. Jumping into the chat box, our first guest of 2022 is Edward Ledden of Sweden. We've got Matt Foster, Joe Pinto from Orlando instead of Louisville this time. We've got Jim Millett, as a 28, Mr. No Date, Shea Berger, 87, Alan W, Zbranik, and Adam Wright, along with Paprice P and Richard Combs, our friend from sunny South Florida, John N, Turkish Meister from Turkey, Dave Opencar, Pizza Man, Thomas Burnett, and LJR35 from Dublin, Ireland. Guys, wherever you are in the world, you're home here at Watchbox. Funny memory as well as lesson learned, but in all my years teaching collectors and sales staff about watches, I found that chronographs and chronometers chronically are confused. It gets worse when trying to explain chronometer chronographs, which are both of those at the same time. After all, malapropisms have consequences. Example, back in high school, I was participating in a Saturday Lincoln Douglas debate, the clash of minds in the Catholic Forensic League. It's what we had back there at the time. We were debating about whether unelected governments can ever be legitimate and what that means. And naturally, we had to argue both sides. So we had to be prepared to argue with the negative as well as the affirmative, both. So I was preparing to take my shot at defending my best take on unelected government, which was enlightened monarchy, when all hell broke loose. The other guy, who was clearly in over his head, started to declare emphatically that democracy was the only legitimate form of government because during the Cold War, and again, with emphasis, he insisted that Russians were defecating throughout the West, throughout the Cold War. In fact, Russian agents and pilots were defecating all over the world and without warning, including from jets and on runways. Taking a breath, after a moment of shock and then realizing that the guy meant to say Russians were defecting to the West, and in jets, and on runways, the judge of the round died laughing. I died laughing. The observer from the league died laughing. The lesson, don't be that guy. Know your chronometers and know your chronographs. All right, our friends in the box. We've got Abdul from Germany, we've got Wolfgang from Austria, Brendan Cunningham, and we've got Michael M., a Mick in Florida, Burning Mr. B, and Scott Wexland from Westchester, Pennsylvania, a local boy. All right. Viewer wrist shots number one, first of the year, it's going to be Tom B. and his Patek Philippe Calatrava taken in the sights on New York City's Madison Avenue pre-New Year. We've got Coleman T. from Sydney, Australia, showcasing his latest 2021 Patek 6119R, and my does it look good. Felipe P. prefers the lively look for his Patek Philippe Nautilus Moonface with yellow custom strap. Zach Z. from Philadelphia impresses with his H. Moser & C. Endeavor Perpetual Moon Aventurine, Goodnight Moon, and Edward B. was trackside at the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix with his Breitling Navitimer. Send your wrist shots to Monday Mailbag at thewatchbox.com to see your watch on this box. All right, 2022 Patek Philippe watches. This, I predict, will be the year of the dress watch. It kind of has to be, because we are burned out on the 5711, and to be perfectly honest, the Nautilus as a whole. So I owe Patek Philippe first the benefit of the doubt. Terry Stern declared that the Nautilus 5711 would be discontinued after 2021, and while it's still available on Patek's pages, the bottom line is that Patek was also milking every single 2021 moment of the 5711 send-off. Green dials, Tiffany dials, crazy auctions, big publicity, you better believe it. Again, I owe them the benefit of the doubt. Come April, come March, when we start to see the new watches at Watches and Wonders, assuming it doesn't get COVID cut, Patek may phase out the Nautilus. But for now, we know that they were milking it for all it was worth last year. What we don't know and won't know until later this year is whether Patek really seeks to turn the page from the 5711 or whether a new 6711 will emerge to fill the gap in nearly identical form, or maybe Patek simply redoubles its emphasis on the Aquanaut 5167A and now makes that the preoccupation three-hand date steel sports watch. If we get twice as many of those, I have no doubt it will pull down the same price as a new watch out of Patek dealers on the open market. So there are two things that could happen there. We could see a successor to the 5711, or we could just see Patek make a lot more Aquanauts. We really don't know. What I hope is that Patek chooses neither of the above and decides to issue more steel dress watches. Now, Patek has long said that only 20% of its production is steel watches, and we know that the most popular Patek Philippe steel model is the Ladies 24, meaning that fewer are going to be Nautilus, are going to be Aquanauts, or special edition steel watches, or regular production steel dress watches like the 5212A. The difference between these scenarios will be huge, and 2021 would look in retrospect like a shameless pander and cash play if Patek is still talking about steel sports watches of any kind in April of this year. The right way for Patek to leave the 5711 behind and de-emphasize the whole Nautilus collection, and for that matter the sports watches entirely, would be to make 2022 the year of the dress watch. Some of this could and should include steel dress watches. Remember, in 2020 we saw the Calatrava 6007A, which was a rather large and impressively loomed steel commemoration of the opening of the new Patek Philippe manufacture. And then the year before that, we also had the weekly calendar, the 5212A, which is a lovely watch and possibly the strangest watch that Patek Philippe currently manufactures. Also, a colossal milestone is looming in the form of the Calatrava 90th anniversary. Now, this is a little bit unofficial because technically the term Calatrava wasn't widely thrown about in reference to dress wristwatches until the 1980s collector movement started to identify the dress watches of the 1930s, 40s, 50s, and 60s as such. That said, 1932's Patek Philippe reference 96 is considered to be the first watch designed under the Stern family, the first Patek Philippe to have a reference number, and by expert consensus, the direct ancestor of the modern Calatrava dress watch, which is an entire family of timepieces, of which the 5196 is the closest to this 30.5 millimeter original. I would also say this: extra steel limited edition models would be welcome this year, perhaps as Calatrava commemoratives for the 90th anniversary, but if they're in the spirit of the 5565 of 2006 or 2011's 3670, it would go a long way towards building excitement around steel dress watches and shifting the attention away from all sports models for a little bit. And let's not kid ourselves, the rose gold, the yellow gold, the white gold, the platinum Patek Philippe sports watches are still very much hyped up pieces. So focusing on the dress watches, especially if they're steel, especially if they're exciting, would help to alleviate the obsession of the last few years, which has not so much been with the 5711, but with the Nautilus collection and the Aquanaut collections generally. I would also say Patek is off to a great start if it uses as the basis for this reform and takes inspiration from last year's 59051A, which is a wonderful masterclass in how to build a full bracelet steel dress watch. It is not a sports watch, it is a dress watch. And while it has an Mosso 2021 green dial, the rest of this watch is destined to have legs. And just as the 5961A was the most collectible version of the 5960, I think this will be remembered as the best version of the 5905. There was also the 4947 1A, which was new for last year, a steel watch, full bracelet, once again a dress model in steel with what they called the shantung, or sort of linen style blue dial. This, well, both really. These are excellent examples of design directions Patek should pursue if it's determined to de-emphasize sports watches in general while continuing to expand its steel offerings. All right, viewer wrist shots number 2. I asked, you answered. Your wrist on my list, starting with Curtis A. and his Rolex Sky Dweller, taking in a serious stake. Tamor P. of Brooklyn strikes a classic wrist pose with his Pepsi bezel, Rolex GMT, looking good. Hakan K. celebrated his 50th birthday with a present to himself, the IWC Portugueser Perpetual Calendar. Very sharp and well chosen. Herb M. went hiking in Texas with his Zinn U50 diver from Frankfurt, Germany. Daniel C. wears one of 2021's hottest watches with the Rolex Oyster Perpetual green dial. Guys, send your wrist shots to mondaymailbag@thewatchbox.com. Let's see what everyone's saying here. Sam Leno, very best wishes for everyone for the new year. We've got Wolfgang encouraging Edward to spend a lot of money on something cool. I missed the prior comment, but I'm pretty sure it's a watch, and I'm almost certain that if Wolfgang likes it, it's a great watch. Right there, we've got Rico Sr. joining in from India. We've got Abdul mentioning that the 5960P was his personal favorite version of that watch. And Devola saying, tired of Patek, hope this is the year of Vacheron. They have a very sharp new skeleton dial, traditional triple calendar. Check that out. If that heralds the start of the year of Vacheron, I'll be a very satisfied customer. I would love to see this year be about Vacheron and not just the overseas. What else is going on here? We've got Jared Lacourte, nice to be back. Watch Cardinal, Aaron, Jacob Z saying, Patek Philippe 5205R or Longa 1, which one would you prefer? Greetings from Denmark. I would probably, between those two, go, Longa 1 is a lot of different watches, so you're giving me some options there, but if it's just the core Longa 1, I would say white gold blue dial or Darth Vader, I would pick the Longa 1. Otherwise, I like me some annual calendars, so if you're not going with the Darth or blue dial, white gold Longa 1, I would probably opt for the 5205 just because I love annual calendars and it is an emblematic Patek Philippe complication. And I should mention that watch is more attractive in person than it looks online. What else is going on here? We've got Tariq Chaudhry saying, I think he can get a 5172G at retailers. Or do I think he can get a 5172G at retailers? I think so. Give Govberg a call. They're our sister company. They're a Patek retailer, and they are the only way to get a new watch from the Govberg Watchbox family. They are Patek dealers. Give them a ring. Spencer Chapman, other brands going to jump on the turquoise Tiffany-esque dial hype train? Probably. Heck, Rolex did it, and they haven't had an official relationship with Tiffany for almost 30 years. What else is going on? Spencer Chapman saying Longa 1 all of the way, and Devola appears to agree. Hail Bop is in the chat box. Late again, that's all right. We missed you. We're glad to have you with us now. Okay, jumping back to our regularly scheduled program, 2022 Tudor watches. This is kind of a big year for them. 2021 Tudor Black Bay updates focused on materials and colors. We had sterling silver, gold, we had black ceramic, all of them attractive but variations on a theme. Hard to believe though it may be, this is kind of a big year because the Heritage Black Bay turns 10 in 2022. We first saw this watch, which is a tribute to the Tudor and Rolex Submariners of the mid-20th century. We first saw that at Basel 2012. And if there's ever been an occasion for launching the much anticipated Tudor Submariner re-edition, this would be a good time. Alternatively, we could have a black bay with crown guards. Now, typically, if you want crown guards on your Tudor dive watch, you're going to get a Pelagos. But I would also say that right now, this would be a great time for Tudor to seize the initiative and launch a model that explores the design of black bays inspired by the Submariner reference 7928 of 1959 and later. That was when the Submariner began to get crown guards on both the Rolex and the Tudor side. The corresponding Rolex model would have been the 5512. So this right here, that is the 7928. You can see that is the squared off crown guard, or the square guard model, which is as rare in Tudor land as it is in Rolex land. I would love to see a square guard black bay that would throw us back to 1959, the original 7928, while also creating a little bit of a link to that rare Rolex 5512. So to date, the black bay has focused on older 1950s no guard Tudor Submariners like the original 7922. That could change this year. I don't know if we will ever get a Tudor Black Bay labeled Submariner, but we could get a Tudor Submariner reissue in all but name this year, and a crown guard model would be a great way to do that. Remember, this is not going to be as big or date equipped as a Pelagos, and that's key because there is a difference. Okay, the big one, 2022 Rolex watches. Let's just be honest, guys. It's not all about the Yachtmaster 2, which is in need of some kind of resuscitation as a model and a model line. No, this is the year the Daytona needs a redesign. First and foremost, the oldest ongoing model in the Rolex collection turns 21, now old enough to drink here in the USA. 2021's Rolex Submariner proves that Rolex doesn't use sales volume or waiting lists as an excuse to delay redesigns of aging models. The Sub prior to 2021 was already red hot, and they were selling every single example they could make. So Rolex is unpredictable. Hot-selling models like the Sub get a redesign. Slow-selling models like the Yachtmaster 2 don't. They seem to linger and loiter. The Daytona is red hot, but Rolex does seem to have some sense of integrity about its models and redesigns them whether it's necessary or not. Remember, in 2018, we saw a new GMT Master 2, even though, frankly, a redesign wasn't necessary to sell the watch. In 2020, we saw the 2021 Sub, and again, redesigned in spite of no problem selling the legacy model. So, I would say the next Daytona is likely to drop this year. It's probably going to measure 41 millimeters because Rolex has already crossed that Rubicon with the Submariner and the Oyster Perpetual. And I think it's going to offer a Yachtmaster 42-like glide lock clasp where we're going to get more adjustment in a standard Rolex clasp. And I think this would be an interesting place for Rolex to debut it on a watch that comes with a bracelet rather than a strap. Remember, the glide lock can be found on the Rolex dive models, but it can also be found on the 42 millimeter white gold Yachtmaster because, of course, the Oyster Flex strap can't be cut. It's metal inside. It has that extra adjustability. Well, I think the next step forward for Rolex clasps would be glide lock on a bracelet. And while I don't think it's likely, I would like to see it. Also, I would say that there could be some vintage design elements that are dictated by a desire to tap nostalgia. Possible vintage cues on the next Daytona could include pump pushers, because after all, in 2022, we don't need screw-down crowns in order to get a watch 100-meter water resistant. I also think Rolex might equip a number of RCO dials. Remember, Rolex Cosmograph Oyster, a hasty reconfiguration of previously made dials to suit screw-down crown guard watches during the manual wind era of the Cosmograph Daytona. I think that's something we could see. Not something we're likely to see, but something we could see. We may also see 200-unit bezels. Why? Because frankly, no one's using these things to time sports cars around a track. And again, nostalgia. Rolex knows how to play it to a T without ever strictly doing the vintage re-edition or the vintage reissue. That's not their thing, but they will include nostalgic elements, and we know that because we saw it on the 2011 Explorer 2, which had all sorts of Steve McQueen cues, and then we saw it in 2017 with the red Sea Dweller. Okay, Let's say that there's more to Rolex's 2022, because there will be, and I'm not just talking dial variations. I think this may be the year Rolex offers the aging Yachtmaster 2 an Oyster Flex strap. This has already proved capable of improving the appeal of the previously slow-moving precious metal Sky Dweller. Remember, after 2017, people want the Sky Dweller, but they want it in steel, not precious metal, and definitely not full bracelet due to the cost. So the Sky Dweller got an Oyster Flex strap in 2020, and suddenly this spurred a commercial revival for a watch that, even in a hot era of watch sales, Rolex dealers were having trouble moving. On a strap, the precious metal Sky Dweller is a different beast, and I think the same would be true for the Yachtmaster 2. It might even make it easier to wear on a small wrist. Okay, let's see what you guys are saying right here. We got Jabo Surf saying, picked up a 2021 Speedmaster in stainless steel last May. Spencer Chapman saying, if Rolex would make a Cellini dress chrono split second, heck, I think if Rolex would make a Cellini in tantalum, it would break the internet. Rolex, do you want Cellini to succeed? Look at what's working in the world of independent watches. Look at alternative materials. Look at tantalum. Look at titanium. Look at blue dials, green dials, mirrored dials, aventurine dials, enamel dials, and guilloche dials. What if Rolex approached Kari Voutilainen about doing a guilloche dial on a tantalum Cellini? It would be crazy. It would be the end of everything. People wouldn't want steel oyster perpetuals anymore. Suddenly they'd be paying too much money for dress watches. And Rolex would have its first major hit in a Cellini case in what seems like ages. I'm not saying you have to do it. I'm just saying the opportunities are there, and it's clear what works. Strap-clad precious metal watches with precious metal prices are not going to make it, even with a Rolex crown. Not in 2022. All right, viewer wrist shots number 3. Ellery K likes this year's Tudor black base ceramic so much that he bought one, and it's looking good on his wrist. Norm M and his Gerard Perregaux vintage 1945 go for a drive in his Audi. I can relate. I've been a 4 rings man myself. Randall E of St. Louis features another Gerard Perregaux, his stainless steel Laureato. This man thinks differently. Ed K of Orange, California is off to a holiday event with his Seiko Presage SARY 159, and Jason Z and his Zenith Day-Fi Classic enjoy the beach at Orchid Cove in the Florida Keys. My goodness, what a panoply of colors. Aquamarine, blue, beige, green, he's got it all. Looking good, guys. Send your wrist shots to mondaymailbag@thewatchbox.com. Okay, Jack is back at the hospital for another round of chemo. Jack, we wish the best for you. Stay strong and stay with us online. Reach out to your online family. Use all your resources. Even if it's just a brief smile, anything we can do to cheer you, send me a wrist shot. Let me know. Guys, this is why we have this online community. This is why we have a live chat. This is why when we get together on Watch Pro's site, on Time Zone, on Watch You Seek. This is why we have the YouTube watch community. It's to offer support to folks who, for whatever reason, cannot be with us in the moment experiencing the watch. If you can't experience the watch, experience the folks who love watches. Share that community, that fraternity of enthusiasts, and draw strength from it. And everyone, please, wish all the best to our friend. Jack, stay strong. What else is going on? We've got Von Super Hans saying cringe watch shots. He's not a fan of the wrist shots. They're usually quite popular. We got Italian Stallion 83 saying bring back the Oyster Quartz case bracelet with an automatic movement. I got another request. Bring back the Oyster Quartz with a quartz caliber. Bring it back with the second generation movement that had the perpetual calendar built in, that had the 10-year battery, that had the quartz chronometer certification to current COSC standards. That's the Oyster Quartz I want. I want it exclusive. And if you want to really put an exclamation mark on it, Rolex, bring back the Tridor. Okay, what else is going on? Jeremy D has a divergent opinion on wrist shots. He thinks that is a killer shot with the blue Day-Fi Classic, and I happen to agree. All right, 2022 Audemars Piguet watches. AP hasn't been as vocal as Patek about the phase-out of its core steel sports watch, although the Royal Oak 15202 allegedly was to be discontinued after 2021. There have been indications that it might remain available in some form or could even be replaced by an equivalent model, basically a new jumbo, so to speak. For example, there are pieces of evidence that Audemars Piguet isn't ready to let go of the 15202, even if it might discontinue it in steel. The 2021 Platinum model with the gradient green dial was announced as an initial run of 100 pieces for that year. So AP was pretty explicit about there being subsequent model years of this AP House exclusive piece, which leads me to wonder, are there going to be other versions of the 15202 that continue in production even as the steel model is phased out? The clear implication is that this model, is going to be around for at least a bit. And since AP is incredibly bad at divorcing itself from its chronic dependence on all versions of Royal Oak, I have my skepticism that we've seen the last of the steel model. Platinum aside, this is clearly the 15202 with a 39mm case, push-down crown, and the legacy caliber 2021 automatic as used in the Jumbo since 1972. Unlike Patek, which probably does have the discipline to kill off the 5711 without instantly replacing it, AP does have that awful track record of reducing its reliance on every variant of the Royal Oak, not just the Jumbo. That said, if AP is serious about replacing the 15202, even just the steel model while precious metal versions stick around, I have a wish list for this year's inevitable 50th anniversary Jumbo. If it is truly to be a new watch, first, let's get real with 100-meter water resistance. Bulgari has proven it can be done in an ultra-thin with the Octo Finissimo automatic with screw-down crown and 100-meter water resistance. This watch is almost 2 millimeters thinner than the outgoing Jumbo. There is no reason, AP, why with your resources, the new Jumbo can't be truly water resistant and swimmable. Second, I want a movement that's thinner than the old 2121. We loved the 2121 because of its old links to the original Jumbo, the fact that JLC created it, the standard to which it was finished by Audemars Piguet, and the fact that it was originally designed and used exclusively by, or designed for and used exclusively by Patek, Vacheron, and AP. But if we are replacing the Jumbo and we are coming out with a new model, let's have a thinner movement than the outgoing automatic, which was 3.05 millimeters thick with the date complication. AP has already proved willing to employ peripheral rotor automatics in caliber 2897, which was in a Royal Oak offshore tourbillon chronograph. And the 2019 Royal Oak Perpetual Calendar Ultra Thin, remember that guy? Which won the GPHG Aiguille d'Or back in 2019? That watch, with an automatic base and a perpetual calendar, was 6.3 millimeters thick. Despite adding the complexity to the automatic base, it was again almost 2 millimeters, basically 2 millimeters thinner than the Jumbo. So AP, we know that you can do this. You have the technical capability to make the watch more water resistant and thinner. I would also say that the historic 5402 models from 50 years ago averaged about 7.5 millimeters thick because of the monoblock case, which absolutely needs to come back. Don't think I missed that. In 2017, you went to a 3-piece case on the Jumbo, and you did it to make it cheaper to build. This is a special watch. It deserves a monoblock case once more. And I'm actually neutral on quick release lugs. These are hot right now, and AP recently introduced them on the Royal Oak offshores. A bunch of brands are doing this. Everyone, right down to Cartier on a $7,000 Santos Large, has quick release lugs. Heck, Oris has a quick release system on the $3,300 Oris Aquastate Caliber 400. But I don't think that proprietary lug systems are going to age well. Once you start adding proprietary straps, look at the old Cartier Roadsters. The only way to get a strap for that watch today is to buy it from Cartier and hope they have it in stock. It's very difficult to go to the aftermarket 5, 10, 15 years after the end of production and find a custom strap for a watch with a proprietary lug system. So I'm not actually sold on that idea, and I would not be crushed if we don't see it on the next Jumbo. All right, let's see what you guys are saying right here. We got Alan saying, hello, Tim, well wishes. We got Steve M wishing good luck to Jack, and Joe Tyson the same, be well, Jack. We got Alan from Singapore, and we got Alan S saying, I agree, the offshore looks too much like a G-Shock. Yeah, Yeah, that's true, but it's been true forever. It's just part of the brand. It's part of the style of the watch. You like it or you leave it, and AP's been very clear about that. They're comfortable with it being a polarizing watch. We have Toto CH saying, what I heard from my AD is that we may get an AP Remaster 02, about which I am super excited. By the way, I've heard through the grapevine that AP is going to a new pricing scheme this year, that it is effectively doing what car dealers do, which is to let the dealer name his price. And instead of letting the aftermarket apply the price adjustment, let the primary dealer apply the price adjustment. So if the recommended retail on the watch is, I don't know, $30,000, but the dealer knows he can get 90 grand, he can sell it for 90 grand. Again, this is just a rumor, but it's what I'm hearing. And if it's true, and AP is doing this, other brands are going to follow. I don't think we're ever going to see Rolex or Patek selling Submariners for 40 grand or Aquanauts for 70,000. But I do think at some point this is going to become more common, and you're going to have recommended retail pricing as opposed to enforced MSRP. And I think this is coming for the industry as a whole. All right, what else is going on in the box? We got SE welcoming and giving his greetings from Germany, saying, following a short price hike after its release, the caliber 3861 Speedmaster has been falling and falling. Where do you feel it will stabilize? To be perfectly honest, I think it's probably going to fall a little bit more because the newness is gone, and whatever exclusivity existed off the bat is likely waning on the market. Now, I think that the Snoopies are going to be scarce, the Ed Whites are going to be scarce, but those aren't really the 3861 in its standard form. So I expect that they're more or less going to depreciate to the same extent that the previous caliber 1861 would have depreciated prior from its recommended retail price. Again, these are not limited watches that will be massively mass produced. So I don't see anything to support aftermarket value, especially not production discipline, which we know Omega doesn't have. And then right here, we have Clucent saying, I'm tempted by a second-hand PAM 118 with box and papers. Am I likely to lose money on that? No, not if it's being sold at aftermarket price by an end user. If it's a private sale, you shouldn't lose unless you pay way over market. And you shouldn't because there's a lot of pricing history as well as many publicly visible ask prices on eBay, sales forums for Panaristi, and of course Chrono24. All right, we got Michael Brooks, a real local boy. He's in this zip code. Greetings from Bala Kenwood. And Spencer Chapman saying, AP doing this pricing policy to have more control over the hype of the market. Not sure how it would affect AP selling to dealers versus just helping the dealers. Well, the thing is, AP now owns most of its dealers. They've gone almost completely vertical in the US market. So when AP says that its dealers are able to basically install market adjustments at the point of sale, what AP's really saying is that its factory-owned stores will very shortly have the pricing to apply market adjustments at the point of sale. Remember, AP is very, very vertical, and with the exception of some joint ventures, they're almost completely vertical in the US market, which is the world's largest watch market right now, even bigger than mainland China and Hong Kong. All right, let's continue with our regularly scheduled program. Wrist shots number 4. Ryan R. and his father Steve share their Rolex Pepsi GMTs from different generations, both classics, and I'm loving that integrated rubber strap. Tommy J. and Kermit stop for Dutch Brothers Coffee in California. How is the brew, man? How is the brew? Terry R. shoots his review Toman Airspeed XL with a Model 155 Healy 100S sports car. I love the model car. Love, love, love the model car. Terry R., you are the man. Alvin A. and his wife share her JLC Reverso amid a burst of natural color. And Eduardo D. with his Glasuta Original CQ Panorama Date and his Audi S4 Sports Sedan take us home for the new year. We're not quite done, but send your wrist shots to mondaymailbag@thewatchbox.com. Guys, you know I love 118 scale models. I've got over a dozen of them, and I've got my own 2002 C5 Corvette sitting on the background of this set. Many more to follow. They're going to go all along this shelf, but that's the one I actually own and drive. The rest are aspirational. All right, 2022 de Bethune watches. One for the fanboys and the nerds. Too many collectors dismiss de Bethune watches as Star Trek watches. Take a quick look, jump back and forth between those for a sec, Sean, and you could see that this is actually kind of obvious. This watch has an architecture on the dial side that really does look like a Starfleet badge. Now, part of that is down to the dial side de Bethune deltoid barrel bridges, and part of it is down to the otherworldly floating lugs, which look like nothing else on the market. For many collectors, de Bethune's signature look is too bold, and a more mainstream independent like F.P. Journe or Moser becomes the default choice. And this is unfortunate because some of the same collectors who think de Bethune is a bit too avant-garde say they appreciate de Bethune's engineering, low volume, and craftsmanship. But 2022 offers the brand from L'Auberson a rare opportunity to reintroduce itself to the collector scene because this is de Bethune's 20th anniversary since its founding by David Zanetta and Denis Flageolet. A return to the classicism of the 2002 DB1 chronograph could inspire second looks from watch collectors who don't fancy open dials, dial side escapements, or floating lugs, but might love the simplicity of de Bethune's early designs. Remember, David Zanetta was always the designer of de Bethune timepieces from 2002 until 2017, and he coined every generation of de Bethune design. But if you ask me what the market wants today, it's generally the classical watch, and that has broad appeal. I would also say that not everyone fancies those floating lugs, open dials, or dial side escapements, but de Bethune might be thinking exactly what they have in mind, because this tactic of reissuing the earliest case design has some precedent at de Bethune. In 2011, the company revived its DB10, which was originally a standard three-hand watch. They brought it back with a date indicator as a limited edition of 20 pieces in white gold and 20 pieces in rose gold with guilloche dial. And in 2013, the mechanical juggernaut DB16 tourbillon perpetual calendar revived the 2002 design one last time. This was as late as 2013, while packing a tourbillon, a spherical moon phase, a perpetual calendar, instantaneous change, a power reserve indicator, a deadbeat seconds display, and a 96-hour power reserve. The watch had all of that in one case. Fewer than 3,000 de Bethune timepieces have been made since 2002, and the company's only making about 200 to 220 a year even now. A permanent reintroduction of the DB1 case as a permanent part of the collection, DB27, DB29, DB21, DB28, that could be quite appealing to have the old style lugs and dials that could supplement the more conventional and extant DB25 model line that I currently sell to folks as the point of introduction to the de Bethune brand. And I really think it would be an olive branch for current collectors of mainstream independent brands that make more conventionally styled watches. Let's see what you guys are saying right here. We got Thomas Burnett saying to Marco, the kind of two tourbillon from de Bethune is my favorite de Bethune. Forget about the Stradivarius. Abdul saying, that one looks great. Love the DB Digital the most. Martin T, hey Tim, what are the new shades you are sporting that are made in the US? These right here, these are the Raptors, and they are absolutely awesome pieces. The Raptors from Gators, they have polarized lenses, high-grade stuff, and super scratch resistant, machined made in the USA, aluminum frame, and 5-barrel double-packed stainless steel hinges. That's 10 barrels per side. These are the real deal. I bought them because they support the military with the military discount. They make their stuff in the US, and Oakley, which I previously wore, they mostly shipped production overseas, and I don't appreciate that, especially when sold at the exact same price. So guys, thank you so much. Philip Lynn, one last question. Where does Blancpain fit in the hierarchy of the horology world? Beautiful watches, and if you want the absolute most ridiculous bargain in the world of high horology, some sort of Blancpain dress complication. We're talking minute repeaters, perpetual calendars, multi-complications, all of that. You can often get them for under $50,000. I've seen an automatic winding platinum Blancpain minute repeater fail to sell at auction with a reserve price just over $20,000. So Blancpain makes things beautifully, finishes them finely, and thanks to Swatch Group money, will be around forever to service the watches and provide parts. Also, they benefit from Swatch Group materials, technology, and engineering, plus Swatch Group distribution and service networks. And finally, remember, even the 50 Fathoms, which all of us know, obviously that's not a secret. Those are some of the finest high horology dress watches you can find. Make mine the 5015 in titanium with blue dial. Guys, thank you so much. Thanks to our live studio audience. We got some new friends, some old ones. Sean is the man on the switcher who makes the magic happen. Time out, Tim out. Happy New Year. It's good to be back, and thanks for logging on.